Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are going to be bringing you the new updated talent tree breakdowns for all of the heroes. And so we're going to actually do it a couple ways, right? Obviously, for those of you that remember, since the latest update, they changed, updated, reconfigured talents across almost all the trees, if not all. And because of that, when the update hit, everyone had their talents reset. So I thought it'd be nice to go and give you guys an updated one to show you new talent tree pathings for all of the heroes. Now, we're going to break this down in order of going, we'll do gathering, we'll do peacekeeping, we'll do engineering, we'll do rally, garrison, and then we're going to go into some of the PvP heroes that you're most likely going to end up using as a primary, or you could end up using as a primary. And that's going to be pretty much all the legendaries and then some of the epics that we're going to touch on as well. So before we get started, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell, and if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, hit up the Discord. You can find a link to that in the pinned comment description right down below. Okie dokie. So let's first start off. I'm actually going to switch my screen here so we can show you all the goodies. So this is what we have, again, starting off, and this is going to be a part 1 to part 2. Like I said, we're going to start off with gathering, and then we're going to work our way all the way through. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you guys some tips, because I also want to preface this by saying that, remember, it's good to tinker. It's good to run trial and errors. You know, even though I might provide what I consider to be a good talent tree, and I'm only going to give you really one, right, per each, there are multiple ways that you can build. And I think one of the interesting things about what the talent tree presents is that there are different approaches. And you might favor one talent over another. It also depends on how you plan to use your legion. That may affect, even if you're running, you might have 10 people running the same legion, but you might take certain talents because you might use your legion in a different way. And again, if we have some time at the end of the video, I'll clarify a little bit more on that. I'm just going to kind of give you a quick view of what you're doing for each of these talents, right? So this is Gathering 1, Gathering 2. Now, the big ones here, obviously, is taking the gathering speed ups here for ore, mana, gold, and wood, and then taking the universal here at 37, getting the extra, oh, dear Lord, it's the extra resources right after gathering. And again, right, it's kind of fully committing here in the gathering tree, because typically with gatherers, right, for the ones that we have, right, and we'll go over that here, with being Kella, and I have to remember all the names now. Kella, and then we have Chakcha, we have Indus, and oh gosh, is it not Theia? Gosh, where's my Indus? Right, Indus and my other gatherer, Pan. There we go. And so that makes 4 for what we have. So again, right, if you run gathering trees on these 4 heroes, which again, if I was running these 4 heroes, right, and I also want to preface this by saying the way that you approach Season 1 may also vary compared to how you're going to approach Season 2. Season 1, you may just end up going with wanting to kind of go full development and full progression, right, kind of unimpeded. So, and this is, like I've mentioned before in a previous video, remember that even if you go full gathering or full peacekeeping or, you know, full engineering on some heroes, right? Maybe, you know, I mean, Nico might be an example of one you might not necessarily do that on, or, you know, peacekeeping for Liliya as an example. Again, it just depends on your preference, right? I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong per se with that. But a lot of it depends on your approach. If you decide you want to go kind of a full development progression route, you might just heavy invest on that. So you can basically focus on trying to get, at least on the peacekeeping and the gathering side, right? Engineering side is kind of 50-50. But on the peacekeeping engineering side, peacekeeping gathering side, you might say, well, I want to focus on just trying to progress my account, get to Castle 25, try and get as much max, try and get as much tech development as I can, and then I'll focus more on the PvP when I get to Season 2. Right, for me, being, you know, going to end up being free to play, if not, you know, light spend, you know, that's going to be my approach going into it. However, you might take a different approach. You might just say, well, you know what, I'm just going to go heavy on the PvP side, You know, even if I'm not doing as much talent damage as I could be on the, you know, if I was to take Peacekeeping on the PvE side, you know, I'm still going to do damage, but it's also going to be more useful for me if any kind of wars break out. It really is up to you on what you decide to do. And sometimes you can almost tinker talents based on how the kingdom is playing out. Right? Is the kingdom more at peace? Is the kingdom more at war? Those are things that you can then discern and kind of map out if you decide you want to be more reactive in that way. So here we go for Peacekeeping 3, and then we got Peacekeeping 4, which is, again, Peacekeeping Part 2, right? This is if you want to just do a full invest on the Peacekeeping tree for any of the heroes that are Peacekeeping, right? And if we go over some of those heroes that are Peacekeeping, right, we have Eliana, we have Nika, we have Alwyn, we have, oh gosh, where's my other one here that I had just done? Bakshi, and then Liliya. Right, so we actually have 5 Peacekeepers now, which is awesome, because, you know, before, I mean, again, we're still waiting on one more Gatherer, but it is nice that we at least have 5 Peacekeepers. So if you wanted to essentially run a 5 Peacekeep march, then you could, right, or 5 legions. Okay, then we go to number 5. This is going to be for engineering. So this is if you just wanted to, you know, run someone full engineering. Now you might not run Nico engineering in this case, and I think that's just because Nico has so much more value on, you know, kind of the PvP side of the, you know, of the game, where it just might not be worth it. Now, if you wanted to, right, you still could, along with your other engineers, right? So you have, oh gosh, who is it? So we got Ordo for 1, we got Craig as our 2nd engineer, and then you got Nico as your 3rd, right? Now, eventually, as more heroes come into the game, I'm sure you will eventually find, you know, you eventually will have players where, let me just give an example here. If you're someone who's free to play and maybe you're not, you know, the most well-equipped to fight, you could still have extreme value in the game, even if you focused on going 5 engineers. Why? Because you could be having some of your engineering heroes doing barricades, building keeps, building alliance flags, forts, destroying alliance flags, destroying forts, right? And if they end up adding more things in the game, right, more things that engineering's, right, you could almost say, well, I'm an engineering main, right? I like to do engineering, and then kind of PvP is my support. That's my second thing that I do. There's value in that, right? Being able to kind of, you know, when you look at a game, you know, something that comes to mind is like Team Fortress 2, games like League of Legends, where you have more types, or, oh gosh, what am I trying to say here? Character types, right? Or roles that you're able to apply. And I love the direction that it seems like CoD is going. And now I don't know if they really have all this planned out or not, but I like the idea of the potential that could happen from it. Now we'll get to rally, right? So this is an example on how you could run if you were to, and again, this is only if you were to invest in full rally, like we've talked about before. Right, this is just one way of doing it. It doesn't mean that it's the best or potentially the most ideal way to do it. But this is if you wanted to build full rally, how I would recommend doing it. I also think that it is good to test other branches. An example of this is we're looking at Alistair. Well, Alistair, you might consider doing going 43 points here in, and then maybe doing your remaining 17 points on tank. Maybe you go full tank and then you do 17 points in rally. Right? That's another example. Maybe with this one, maybe you go full cav and then a little bit into rally, right? Because maybe you're only going to run cav rallies with Alistair. This is just an example. Then if we go into, and then let me show you, right? So again, with your 2 rallies, you have Hosk for 1 rally, and then we have Alistair, right, for the other. And with Hosk, maybe you go full precision. And maybe you go 43 points precision, then you do 17 points rally. Maybe you will do 43 points overall, and you go 17 points rally, right? Maybe you'll do a mix of all 3, right? Again, you have to read what this is important, right? And I say this all the time, but you have to actually read what the talents are, right? It's great to be able to look at what I'm showing you and saying, oh, hey, this is awesome. I can use this. But it's even better if you go through it and you get a better understanding for yourself on what skills are good to take, and then also testing things. One of the things I actually would love, and I'm going to talk about this at the end of the video, I would love if they made it so you could actually find each here, like you could look at each hero's talent tree, regardless if you have them summoned or not, and then you can go through and make custom presets. But then, in order to apply it, you have to have the hero unlocked, right? So it's almost like you're pre-pathing the hero ahead of time, so you can get an idea. And then I would love if it showed like stats on the side for maybe just the percentages or something. That would be phenomenal. Okay, now let's get to Garrison. So if you're going to run Garrison, right, this could be an example if you just wanted to run full Garrison. Now, it may not necessarily be the most ideal to do this, because I think what we're really finding out now, especially from quite a few rally reports that I've been seeing for the first couple kingdoms, is that we're often seeing players not heavy invest in Garrison, but more so heavy invest in the other kind of PvP talents. Right, so an example of Garwood is, maybe you do infantry, tank, and then maybe a few points in Garrison. Right, maybe you go all infantry and maybe do 43 points infantry, 17 points Garrison. That seems to be the trend that I've been seeing a little bit more of, where the people that are doing Garrisons and rallies are not necessarily heavy investing a 43 point max, right, or min into those dedicated trees, but it's more of they're investing like the 17 points or so into them. But this is just an example. I mean, I've seen people that have ran a full Garrison tree and a full rally tree. It just depends on what your mix and match is, right? So this is just one example on how you can do that. Then we get to Alwyn, and I want to say this, man. I think Alwyn and the control tree is amazing, right? This to me is so next level, and I just want to show you what I mean by that, because I absolutely love, and I'm curious if they're going to add in more control. I just want to talk about one thing here, which is reticent. It says when your Legion casts a rage skill, they have a 25% chance to silence the target, preventing them from casting rage skills for 2 seconds. That is sick. Right, and it almost makes me think, right, and there's other really good skills on the control tree, but it almost makes me think the people who've been running Alwyn as primary are a little bit ahead of the game, right, because that is massive. Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, that to me is sickness. So I love, man, Alwyn is really cool. And again, when I start playing, unless someone, comes out that's better, or that makes it more of an obvious pair for me to run as a primary, right, then I'd run Alwyn as a primary, and maybe even Liliya as a secondary, maybe Waldyr as a secondary, but Alwyn as a primary with the control tree, I just love. I think it's a very creative. Part of me feels like it's a little underused based on matchups that we've seen in the open field. I have seen some Alwyn primaries, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's really cool. I love the control tree. So this is kind of how I would build Alwyn. If we do Waldyr Liliya, this is how I would build Waldyr Liliya. Again, this is one, remember, as I always talk about, this is one way of doing it. It's not the only way to do it, just one way. I've seen people go full skills and then go like 43 point skill. I've seen people go 17 point in Magic. Then we get to Bakshi, and this is kind of like, this is skills plus cavalry, right? So I like... and I want to point out right as well, I didn't say this in the beginning and I totally forgot to. I want to give a huge shout out to Ghost from SS1 Plus. Again, he was the top player in Server 1, right? The first beta kingdom that was released. He was able to send me some talent trees from a couple of his heroes, and even though I'm going to do something with that in a future video, I want to give a huge shout out because I don't have some of these legendary heroes unlocked because they're just paywall gated, and I can't spend during beta because of the ineligible, region and how the currency works, at least for myself. So Ghost was kind enough to send me some talent tree screenshots. So huge shout out to Ghost. I really appreciate it more than he may know. But again, right, this is how I might build and differ a little bit from Ghost build. Again, this is just my example on how I would build Bakshi, going skills and then going my 17 points here into cavalry. And again, right, can kind of use similar things with Emrys. However, with Emrys, it's a little different because, right, you have Cav, right, with Bakshi you have Cav skills. With Emrys you have Cav PvP mobility. So for me, I actually went more into the Cav tree with Emrys and then did a little bit of PvP. I've seen some people go 43 points in Cav and then 17 points in PvP. Then we look at Garwood, and this is kind of if you wanted to do like a tank infantry. I want to point this out. The way that I view the tanks, right, being Garwood and Madeline for all intents and purposes, is that these heroes are really built in a way where if you're going to play a certain role, right? I like the way of playing, and you can play them differently. You can play them full infantry if you want to go more on the PvP side for frontline. I personally like to play them. I think that there's more of a role here on playing a kind of a pure tank on what you'd see in something like a League of Legends as an example, or an MMORPG, where you're kind of playing that frontline absorption, that damage absorber, and you're trying to sustain yourself as long as possible. So I like the idea of going more on the tank side for heroes like Garwood and Madeline. So this is my build for them. And then on Madeline, right, going tank and then doing some PvP, right? This is how I would build Madeline, right? Again, it doesn't mean that it's the only way, as I always say. This is just one way. Nika, I actually like Nika going a little bit more on, and this is if you didn't want to run a peacekeeping, right? So here's kind of a second version, even though I said I was only going to do one. But you can see, like, if you wanted to go infantry and then do your 17 points here into skills, you can do it that way for Nika. Here is Hosk. And this is how I would do Hosk. Varies a little bit from Ghost build, but this is something, right, where we kind of go full precision. I love the precision tree on Hosk as well. So it was actually kind of cool when I redid this, when I was redoing my, when I was redoing my points, and I was waiting for a screenshot to be sent. It was really cool to see Ghost him going full into precision. So again, I love the idea of that, right? I mean, I took a few different points here, but again, I like going full precision and then going, right, your 17 points here into rally. Then we get over to Nico. We're almost done here, right? Nico, if you want to go marksman precision. So for me, right, I like going marksman here more than precision. However, right, I still think it's worth testing to see how the precision tree operates if you did want to go your 43 points into precision, then your 17 points into marksman. I just like testing out marksman just because I think there's a little bit more value on it compared to if you're kind of looking at like the rally tree versus precision for someone like Hosk. And then we do Indus, right, which is for me kind of going overall and then support. I think there was a little more value going overall than support. However, I do also want to note, I think it's worth testing to see how the support works if you did want to go full support and then into overall. I just liked it a little bit more when I was comparing the two. Then we look at Theia, who's overall, actually, what's funny here is I actually did all three. Personally, I felt that I got a little more value out of doing all three. Now, you can't do, like as an example here, right? You'll notice that I am missing, because of the way that I'm distributing my points, right? I am missing the opportunity to get a third milestone talent, right? If I was to go into a full tree and then go into a second, I could get 3. I actually found a little more value doing it this way, which is interesting. It is different. This is actually more of a rage generation type build. As you see me taking the human, right, these are kind of more rage talent where you're building more rage over a period of time. And so I actually think that running Theia in this type of rage build where you're basically doing this and then with a secondary who's maybe just doing a lot of damage, or maybe they're more of a tank and you're just going to proc their ability like a Madeline skill, or even like a Nika active, for example, maybe like a Liliya active. I mean, I just think that this is a very interesting build if you wanted to kind of go pure rage accumulation. And again, who knows, right, if Theia will be ran. I mean, I think I've seen Theia ran a few times primary, but we'll be interesting to see what they do. And then the very last one is, this is just kind of the foundation talents for a PvP general. So meaning that if you're running like a more PvP focused hero, some of the foundation talent positions do change. This is just kind of a last showing. So that's pretty much it for me. On our new updated hero talent trees since the latest update, because again, some of those talents were updated, rearranged, and changed a bit. The last thing I'm going to leave you guys with, and I said this before earlier, is, just be sure to always test things, right? It's important to get a good understanding of how to build talents, and especially how you can change talent tree builds depending on what your focus is for utilizing specific heroes, legions, and then how you want to even use them on the field. Right? I don't necessarily believe that there's always going to be one way that's a set way. I mean, I think with things like the if you're going gathering or peacekeeping or engineering, I think those have a little bit more certainty. Because those are probably going to be a little bit more tried and true, after we get to a certain point. But when it comes to the PvP side, right, mix and matching who you're running as a secondary sometimes can even change what talents you run on your primary. So again, I think that is one of the most unique ways on how to approach talents. And so hopefully, if anything, this video did a good job of explaining some of that at an entry level and then showing you the talent trees. I will be doing another video that will basically do where I'll take a couple heroes and I'll do a hard breakdown on their talent trees and explain why it is you may want to build them a one way versus another. So that way it can be a little bit more of an educational video to bring people up to speed on, okay, well, this is how this works, right? This is why and how I might pick this talent over another because of this, that, or the other. With that in mind, that is going to be it for me, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Again, let me know, right? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a different build for anything I showed? You know, what's your view overall? Again, let me know anything and everything in the comments. That is going to be it. I'm out. Until next time, I will catch you later.